Because if you believe that everything, all your success, all your results, all boils down to how meritable your contributions are, then when you don't get that promotion,
You'll be disappointed, right?
you'll be so disappointed, you might even be crushed.
So welcome back to another episode of Wise and Shine. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
Hi, Eric here, Mr. Positivity.
And I'm Dawn, SG Budget Babe.
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about a very important topic.
Ooh.
Right? Is meritocracy dead, right? Because recently I think there's a whole tussle in the parliament, right? And after President Halimah Yacob's speech, right? So, fight. You think canteen right? But she made her whole speech and spiel essentially about making Singapore more equal, more inclusive society. All the keywords got hit, right? And by extension, the opening discussion of Parliament today or these few days is really about, is meritocracy alive, right? And what is meritocracy? Everybody is fighting over this idea of meritocracy. Even some of the PAP MPs come out and say essentially their view of meritocracy is no longer relevant, right? And everybody's trying to keep it up. Right. So, and I know sometimes we talk about these bits and pieces in our different episodes here and there, right? So today we're gonna once and for all talk about is meritocracy dead, right? And if so, why? If not, why? And how do you kind of work through this system for yourself?
Dead. Dead. Deluding yourself, you think it's alive.
Wait, why do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, we all want to believe meritocracy is alive, right? It's a dream, it's a hope, it inspires you. And if you're from a situation where you don't have a lot of things that typically would push you into success, meritocracy is a very nice idea to subscribe to. And I admit that because I'm a product of meritocracy, right? I didn't have my family environment and everything. I didn't have a lot of the luxuries and access that some of my friends and peers had, but I still made it through. But I mean, I think as you age and you go further in, you really dip your toes into the workplace, you start to realize that actually meritocracy is just a slogan lah.
Slogan?
Wow. Yeah, it's just a slogan only lah. The reality is you see people who are not as capable of being promoted. Then you see you're I don't think that the guy really deserves it, but he gets the higher paycheck or whatever. And then you're meritocracy is dead.
Okay. Well, I come from the world of entrepreneurship, and I think the market is cruel. If you're good, you're good. If you're bad, eventually markets find out and your business go bust. So I would say that meritocracy is absolutely alive. But should we redefine it? I think the answer is yes.
So what is meritocracy to you then?
To you, it's as basic as success and wealth and influence and power goes to people with
That is not basic.
merits.
That's 5 words. They're all damn complicated.
Every
Every single word is very cheap.
So that's my definition.
Season,
right? That what is merit? Merit is anything good, worthy that people are celebrating. And during my time, merit comes from doing well in school. Merit comes from being able to contribute to society.
Merit is only when you save your country lah.
No, not true. Because I wasn't a full time and I wasn't a full time guy.
I quoting Korean drama. You just ignore me.
Oh, sorry, I never watched.
Such a reference.
Like her, SG Budget Babe, right? I was also a product of meritocracy, right? My dad was a taxi driver. My mom was a housewife. We don't really have a lot of money, but every single year I received bursary from the government because I did well in school. So to me, doing well in school, being first in class, doing well in your grades actually do get the funding that you need to go to a good college and go to a good university. I still remember in secondary school, again, because of meritocracy, I became one of the youngest to get to do a history trip in Indonesia and open my world to traveling. So I would say it's very much alive, at least my point of view, that if you do well in school, that piece is still very much alive. We still do look at your grades.
Yeah, but that was 20 years ago.
No, okay. And
sorry.
Is it longer relevant?
20 years ago. So I would say that back then.
Now. What about now? That's why it's about now.
Now I would define it in the world of entrepreneurship that if you do not have good finances, you do not have good knowledge and sentiments about the market, you don't know how to hire the right people, your business will still go bust. And in that world, there is still merit, right? As what makes a good businessman, what makes a good entrepreneur? Can your company solve a problem for people, at a cost that people can afford? So if I look at it from that definition, then absolutely in the world of entrepreneurship, we thrive by meritocracy because government can fund you the business, but eventually if your business doesn't have the basic fundamentals, it will still go bust.
I fully agree with you, but I still think meritocracy is just a populist slogan.
Share. Why?
Yeah,
You
why?
need everyone to
Cannot like that,
believe
just
it.
agree and then like share.
I mean, okay, honestly, if I was running a country, you need everyone to believe that meritocracy is alive, right? Then, people will work hard and do the things that you want them to do. But in reality, I mean, and I say this from my teaching experience, if you look at the students today, meritocracy is very different from what it used to look like in that era. Sorry, but...
Tell us more.
Right. I mean... The reality in our era, for example, when my teacher asked, how many of you guys have tuition?
Yes.
Only a small fraction will raise up their hand. My teacher friends say when they ask that question today, the small fraction is those who don't have tuition. So your access to even something as basic or as meritocratic as education is now really starting to get influenced by the type of access that your parents or your environment or your lifestyle can give you. And we cannot discount the fact that the students who do have tuition get access to a lot more knowledge, that get access to a lot more opportunities, and hence potentially would tend to do a lot better. Now, that's not saying that those who don't have cannot excel. They can. But it's a lot harder. They have to cross a higher
but there's
hurdle.
remedial done by schools too, right?
Not enough.
Aren't schools doing that
Not
to help
enough.
those kids?
Not enough. You must ask the kids and the teachers whether
I
they
really
think
don't
it's
think
enough.
it's enough. If it's enough, why people need to go tuition like mad?
I really think it's not enough as well.
Yeah.
So as a GP tutor, right?
Yeah.
Like I taught GP for almost a decade, and I was very proud of my ability to really help my students excel and get the A or at worst a B if they're super weak, right? But I was always, deep down I was always feeling like I can only help those who can afford to pay. And as much as I would want to help those, like I'll always tell my husband, well, I dream of a time and a place, and I would want to create something to make that into reality. But I dream of a time whereby I can help students who really want to succeed and do well in GP but have no financial means. Then maybe you write me like an application justifying it. Then I access how desperate you are and whether you deserve it. Then I give you a scholarship or something. So I was like, I set up this tuition center called Robin Hood, and I'll do all of these things. But obviously that never materialized because life and kids and everything got in the way, right? But the reality was going through that made me realize, I really can only help those who can afford to pay for my services. Because as much as I would love to help those who cannot afford, then someone else is actually paying that cost.
Yes.
And for now, that comes from me where I can't afford that cost for now. If I was rich, I was a billionaire, then maybe you can be my sponsor for that Robin Hood tuition center. I'll pass the check to you guys also. But I mean, the reality is we have to admit that it's really, really changing. Yeah. So the question here, but I think the good thing is that even as that is changing, like the future of education is also changing.
Yeah.
If AI didn't come on, and I like this quote. Someone said this, AI is making knowledge and information even more commoditized.
Precisely. Do you know now with ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT functions like a teacher to help you actually turn complex topics into simple topics. It can actually teach you how to solve math problems. So I feel that today with AI, everybody has access to good tutors or good education.
But the real
you don't
test
need money
is,
anymore.
So if everyone has that, then how will you be different? Because meritocracy at the end of the day rewards the better ones, right?
Well, therefore, I feel that we should always look at what society needs in this generation. Like back then, our generation, society need more workers, white collar workers, right? So they need us to study hard to get our degrees, to have skills so that we can contribute back to society. So I will start by looking at what today's society main problem is. So for example, we just talk about it, there are a lot of needy people, let's say. There are a lot of people that need help. We are lacking of social workers. We are lacking of social help. Let's say if that becomes one of the key areas, then therefore I would then define that part of meritocracy is when someone is actively contributing to a charity or actively doing social work. That becomes my criteria of what merit is. Because that generation, we need that. So think of it like, actually it's very similar to how we hire people in business. We don't really hire just by a job title. We always look at what our business need So we need this X number of skills, and we calculate this X skill produce how much money for us. A portion of it we're willing to give it as salary to that worker. So if the person can bring $10,000 to us, obviously we'll be more than happy to pay maybe 3-4K for you, right? If you cannot generate 10,000 for us, but you can help the company save $10,000, it is also value, and therefore we'll pay you X number of people. So in the business world, it's very clean. How we pay you depends a lot on your value. So I feel that the definition of merit will also be dependent on what society today needs. And then once we come out with that criteria, then we dish out who has the most
So
merit.
society needs definitely more healthcare workers and social workers because of aging population, right? But I don't see them being paid as much as the bankers.
So therefore, which is why we are redefining merit right now, right? And so I would see that if the government feels that that piece is very important, we'll start to see a change in how social workers are being paid. We'll start to see the status that we give to people in healthcare. More than bankers. I remember during my time, like, whoa, to be a banker, especially an investment banker, is很了不起. It's an amazing thing. I would say with good communication and media, I'm sure we're able to change society's look of healthcare workers. Like, wow, you're a nurse. Because I remember there was a period of time where we look at teachers and we go like, wow, teachers are amazing.
Yeah, now teachers are like meh.
No, we're not saying teachers are meh, but it's just that, the communications are changing.
Knowledge is being commoditized.
Agree.
Last time it wasn't. That's why being a teacher was like, wow.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
now time changed.
Yeah, but we have been going on and on this whole meritocracy thing for a long time, redefining meritocracy. Every other few years you hear a whole spiel about it. You must appreciate the cleaners, appreciate whatever, just pay them more, right? If you pay them more, they get dignified, they get power in the system, right? There's two main things in the system, right? One is your votes, the other one is the money you have, right? Everything else is a bit more, intermediary or peripheral, right? If we pay, a lot of these people more, because not that I don't think you should, have some campaign on a great, have some campaign, reshape the minds of the people. I think all those things are good, right? And I would say actually, these days bankers turning very smelly, right? Not as sexy as last time. People, I feel there's a difference in this idea. But anyway, right? So,
But they're still the highest paid.
Exactly. Right. So
what did you just say? Sorry.
They're still the highest paid.
still one of the highest paid career out there, right? And that is the part, right? As much as we try to go this whole feely round, or appreciate whatever shit, right? Which I don't disagree. Pay them, right? That is the only way to truly get a lot more power in the society that we live in.
But Reggie, you see, so in the ideal world, if government has all the money in the world, obviously they will want to pay everybody, right? That's the easiest way to make everybody happy. But the fact of the matter is there's limited resources. And we have to understand that Singapore doesn't operate on its own, We cannot operate on silo. We have to look at what the world is valuing.
The world is shifting left.
Which is why we're shifting too.
Yeah.
It's like Titanic, You don't shift a Titanic overnight, right? So I would say that we have to give credit to the government where it's due, that they are shifting. They are being aware that what's happening in the world. And I think it's up to us to also be more wary about what's going on in the world and to also follow suit. Yeah. That's how I see it.
No, I don't disagree with you. And in fact, to be clear, I'm not saying the government's not shifting. Government is shifting, okay? And that's why the discussion is so hot today, right? Because everyone is jostling for
the definition.
Two ideas, right? Is meritocracy still valid, right, as an idea? The other is what is considered meritable, right? This is the two ground, I would argue this is the two real ground that all the politicians and the leaders are fighting for, right? How do you define what is considered merit, and is meritocracy still valid as an idea, right? And I think that's why Don said meritocracy is dead, right?
So what's your take? You didn't give your take.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your chief financial coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show. Okay, you always ask me to do this kind of thing, right? Like,
Let's
let's say your take, but okay, never mind, you say the take, right? So, my view is meritocracy is an idea that if I'm the leader, I will push the idea also.
You see, so you agree that
I
it has
agree
to
with
be
you.
a populist slogan.
There must be. I will argue that it may not be populist by definition, because it's no longer popular.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It's not, but it has to be for the society.
I get what you mean. I
function.
get it's a PR brand kind of. You need a big idea to unify the people, right? So I don't disagree. If I am the leader, I don't disagree that I may take this ground. Right, because there are only a few grounds: nationalism, meritocracy. Only a few at this point in time. Right, so I won't disagree taking this ground. And I think throughout these 20 over episodes, right, you come to realize that I will shift my ground depending on who I am. Right, if I'm a leader, I will think of things in a certain way. When I'm part of the system, I will think of it in a different way. Right, because all of us are trying to maximize our interests in that sense. Right, so I will argue that as much as the narrative has to be somewhere, right? Something has to stand as the narrative. And if meritocracy is the convenient narrative, it will continue to stay intact, right? Until it is like shitty enough to collapse, right? So at this point in time, it will not collapse. But as a person within the system, increasingly you feel it's harder and harder and harder and harder, because the capital that is being stacked onto it is just higher and higher and higher. Like just now your example about entrepreneurship, right? I disagree, because the main idea here is everybody that enters a particular sector, you start at the lowest life form, right? And whoever that's in front of you have already accumulated the resources, they have accumulated their wealth. Are they truly, is their product truly better than yours? Maybe not, right? But they can block you up. Right, like how Microsoft is really just blocking out a lot of the other software providers, right, through the sales process, through a lot of these other things, right? So if we're just talking about pure like merit of the product itself or the service at the price point, right, it may not get you to where it is, right? It's a lot more complicated than that, right? But and then that brings us to the next tussle, which is what is considered meritable, right? And
as someone who we are all products of the system, and we are in that system. We're not the leaders here, right? Yes. That's why I think like we need to be able to shift. I think it's good to teach our children and continue lying to all of them that meritocracy is a lie, because that's the only way, and it gives us hope. I mean, when I was younger, I truly believed that meritocracy was my way out, was my ticket out. And that's why I work hard. Now I was probably able to achieve the things that I did because of that belief. But after going into the corporate world, seeing things, waking up and realizing that reality is a little different, then if you continue to cling on to that dream and ideal which no longer works, you're just deluding yourself. And then you'll be like, and you become harder on yourself, because if you believe that everything, all your success, all your results, all boils down to how meritable your contributions are, then when you don't get that promotion,
you'll be disappointed, right?
You'll be so disappointed, you might even be crushed to the point whereby you can't pick yourself up. Because you start to then blame yourself so much. But it's easier. It's like a coping mechanism, right? When you then tell yourself that meritocracy is dead. I'm doing my best. I will still do my best. But I'll recognize that if I can't hit a certain tier, I can't get to a certain path, it's not always just me.
And if we go with that train of thought, then I like us to all believe that meritocracy is alive because it implies personal development, right? It implies you being the best version of yourself, but being smart as well to see what society needs and then to align with it. I think that's important. However, I also feel that there are two other factors that contributes to a person's success. Not just because you have the skills and the abilities, because anyway, people's definition of merit is also different. I feel that number one is understanding the rule of the game. So like, let's use corporate, for example. Yes, you already have the skills and the knowledge, but do you know how to play the game? Because if you do not know how to play the little game in that organization, then obviously you will also lose. What? Like, I'm a great basketballer, but if I play basketball rules in a soccer field, I would still fail, even though I have the merits, right? So
what if you know how to play the game, you're working for family office, but the business is going to be given to the son, not you.
And that's why I haven't finished it. So number one is, you still need to have your core skills, strengths, virtues, talents, right? Number two, the environment. You need to understand what's the rules out there. You have to play by the rules. And the third one, very important, is actually relationships. Because I may not be a powerful one, but I can be associated or connected with a powerful one, therefore being able to rise up the rank through cocktail. This is how the corporate world works, right? It's always looking at whose cocktail are you rising up with. So if I build the relationship with the right people whom I believe has the power to rise, when he rises, guess who he's going to bring? Even if he leaves the organization, he will bring his A team over as well. So I would say that let's not just assume that just because you have all the merits, you will be successful. I think that's just one factor. But as an individual, I think it's also important to invest in your network, invest in your relationship, because relationship is what gets you access to resources and opportunities. Plus, be aware of what's the game that you're playing. And if you understand the game that you're playing, then the chances of you're stacking success on yourself.
No, and I think that's the part, right? Because in your head, that merit is all these skills, relationship, and
Network.
understanding the rules, right? It's not part of merit. But I will collectively put all of them as part of merit. Right? I will collectively put all of them as part of what is considered meritable. Right? How shrewd are you in this game? How sly are you in this game? Right? It's also considered meritable, in the sense of it gets you to that success, but it is morally questioned. Okay, so it's two different things, right? Because this is the game, right? I know how to play this game. I choke the people, I get them, blah, 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 blah. I know how to play the game, right? And within these parameters of the game, I will be successful because I understand how to play this game. And then I double down on it, right? So meritable, I get it, right? Because within the success of the rules of the game, I play, I'm good at it. But there comes the line of morality. It's like, hey, wow, 这个人cannot one. Use all sorts of weird ways to get up. Right. So I think those are two different ideas.
But you see, the use weird ways to get out, right? I don't mind if you're good.
Yeah.
But if you use weird ways to get out, but actually you're not very good, I mean, the system will kick you out too, eventually. If they celebrate meritocracy.
And that is the part that a lot of people are betahan, because I think that's a lot of the part where people feel like, you tell me this is like A, B, C, D, E is all meritable, right? These are what constitute meritocracy. But then you look at a lot of the other people that are up there, it's like, what the hell, they don't even fit this square, right? Or they don't even fit this circle, all right? And then it's like, as those square circle.
The biggest problem I have with meritocracy is that it teaches you, or it makes you believe that with meritocracy you can get to anywhere. The end goal is limitless. There's no limitless, but the reality is there is.
That's why it's called ideal, ma.
Yeah,
exactly.
However, I like where Reggie is going, because it gives me a new thought, which is actually every organization, right, has its own definition of meritocracy.
It is true.
But the problem is sometimes they don't tell you the real definition of meritocracy, because, like you said, it's not convenient to say, or it's a bit
true. It's true.
What do you call shady. So it's up to us to go figure out what are the real rules what are the things that truly are celebrated in their organization, and don't take it at face value that just because they say that this is what we're looking for, you assume that it's true. HR will only tell you things that they can tell you, and you have to observe with your eyes, because ultimately the reality says everything. Whoever gets promoted, whatever that they do is the reason why they get promoted.
Exactly.
That becomes the definition.
Exactly.
So we just need to be smarter.
So what is under the table is the real discussion, right? Not is what is on top, right? And I agree with you, depending on which organization you are in, right? Like even in some of these religious organizations, I know I'm going to taboo grounds. In some of these religious organizations, right, you will assume that within a religious organization, you move up because you are virtuous, right? Because you are like, as close to God or whatever as you are, and then you move out, right? I mean that's the casual idea of how a religious organization probably should promote.
But your definition doesn't gel with what
exactly.
it really
But the
is.
reality is the amount of people that you can convert.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The amount of people that you can bring into the organization, the influence that you get over time, that is the real deal. Right?
Which is why it's an evolving definition. It's not a fixed definition. But I think the problem is that most of us define it as based on our own.
Yeah, so we need to stop doing that.
Yes, correct. So then you need to recognize, so okay, not that meritocracy is dead, but like your belief of what meritocracy is and used to be is dead.
May not be based on reality.
You need to change that by looking at reality and seeing where are the rewards, where are the success following, and then realizing that is the formula that constitutes meritocracy.
I think that's easier, right? Which is we go in the organization and we observe what is really truly meritable, and then we do it. We align it. But it may not be aligned to your values. You have the choice to leave that organization and that rules. So that is one way. Or the second way is you can stick by your definition of what's meritable and then go find an organization that is aligned to those values too, lor. and then you go.
Both are not conflicting, right? Both,
it's
they
not.
They are
It's just
consistent.
one up down approach.
Which is why these days a lot of the ministers and a lot of the leaders are talking about inclusive, more definition of meritocracy, more ways to define what is success and all that. Which actually I don't disagree. I think you should have done it 2 decades ago, right? So it's like I actually want them to do more of that.
I remember 2 decades ago that was not was
fashionable.
convenient.
It's a fringe idea,
and that was
Correct.
not what is needed as well.
Correct.
So what I get it from today's discussion is there are really 2 skills that we need to develop for us to succeed in a meritocratic, right? Is it called meritocratic society?
Before you begin, right, I would argue that actually meritocracy is inherent in every organization.
Exactly.
Every structure,
If you
because
have
you have
this
to define
criteria,
who is the best. Even if today the cooperatives, because I know some people they hate the capitalists and all that, right?
Yeah.
Even if today the cooperatives are not the leaders, right, and the unions are much bigger, right, then you got to ask yourself who becomes the union leader.
Exactly. The union will set the criteria.
Exactly. So within the union culture, then there's a union leader, right? Then who is the union leader, right?
Because at the end of the day, in a world of scarce resources, there will always be a need for meritocratic society because not everybody can be the leader, right? We are living in a triangle world. But what I wanted to say was this, that for us to do well in a meritocratic society, we need, number 1, observational skills. You need to observe what actually gets rewarded, not what is being said, but what is really truly being rewarded.
Yes.
Number 2 is we need flexibility. That's a problem. That we need to be flexible in being willing to change things so that we can fit into the organization. So for example, like maybe we thought that our ability to teach is what makes me a great teacher. But now that we ChatGPT and all the generative AIs, we realize that no, it's about learning how to change children's behavior that is now more rewarded. Teachers then need to adapt. So the more adaptable you are, the easier for you to thrive in a society that's constantly changing.
Yeah, it's true. But how you always say abundant mindset. So is it scarce resources or is it abundant mindset?
Mindset can be abundance, but the reality is scarce. The resources will always be scarce.
How do they gel?
I think of it as abundance mindset is like a magnet and the resources are like the nails. So whoever has the most abundance mindset attracts the most nails, which is still a scarce resource.
So to hand off, I think the old definition of what most of us believe, at least most of us were taught to be meritable, is dead. We need to realize that, acknowledge it, and then go and seek out and understand what's the new definition. And I think the challenge is no one's going to tell you what the new definition is. You need to observe and figure that out for yourself. And if that doesn't, like you cannot connect with that definition, right? Then go somewhere else.
Or change law. Oh wait, you say you cannot connect, right? Then
you cannot connect. Then go somewhere else.
Leave the country if you need to, right? I mean, the world is so big.
Singapore is too small for you, right? I'll link to the episode below. But so go somewhere else where your definition of meritable can actually gel with what the organization is. So like some people, they don't strive to be the richest. Some people don't need a lot of money. They're happy and they're very much content with what they have. They just want to be at a certain level, at enough or a little bit more than enough, but don't have to be super, super wealthy, right? So maybe for them, their biggest fulfillment and what they consider to be meritable is your contribution to society. How many lives you've saved, how many people you're really helping, how many elderly you're helping to get out of loneliness. So they will go into jobs, and even if the job doesn't reward them financially to the extent that the bankers and all these other capitalist jobs do, but they get that reward there because it aligns with their version of what is meritable in society.
There you go. Well said. Well, good summary.
But I would push the idea that collectively as a society or as society, we want to build towards a society where it's more welcoming, more inclusive. A lot of these big ideas, right? Which essentially means, you got to be more equal, right? People got to pay better across the board. You got to, shake up some of these broad definition, which I think is what's happening, and by then it's really a situation where the auntie want to push cardboard, then okay, it's for exercise. At this point in time, it's not, right? And it still isn't, right? And if someone wants to, be a nurse, and be a social worker, or do early childhood, they actually care for it and they really want it. And it is not a sacrifice that they have to, have a tussle with in their quality of life. right? And that is the whole structure, essentially redefining what is meritable.
And I think that the only people that can do that would be the government, because they can redistribute the wealth in a way that at least everybody can still manage their basic standard of living. Because the minute the basic standard of living is broken, forget about talking about meritocracy, right?
Exactly.
Because it's all about survival. Right?
Exactly.
But once we achieve that already, then it's our choice. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the discussion,
I think they're dealing with that.
Yes,
piece.
yes. That thing is being dealt with, and I think we should cheer for them, right?
Yeah.
I think and that's why we talk about it, because we are adding pressure. It's true, right? When you do content, you're out there, you spread certain ideas, you talk about certain things, you're essentially trying to shape the discourse.
I'll be very curious to know, whoever listening or watching this episode, what would you define as meritable in today's context? Very, very curious. Yeah, let us know in the comment section.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Love it.